Well, hey there, everybody. It's Mrs. Asaro here with another First Chapter Friday. I'm so excited to bring you my summer series because right now it is Memorial Day weekend, and I thought it would be a great time to pick out some great summer reads for you. I'm very happy to bring you a book that I absolutely loved, and I learned about this book really from my middle school class. It is called Hope Was Here by Joan Bauer. It's a Newbery Honor book, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that you have your free First Chapter Friday notes. It is linked in my video description, so go ahead and download it and maybe keep it in your reader's notebook. This way you can keep track of the books you're hearing about, and when it's time for another book to read, you can refer back to it. Okay, let's hear a little bit about Hope Was Here before we get started. Ever since she changed her name to Hope, Hope has tried to live up to it, keeping her outlook positive. When she and her aunt moved from New York City to small town Wisconsin to help run the local diner, she's going to make the best of it. And before she knows it, Hope is part of the diner staff. She's wrapped up in the town's politics, and she's even caught the eye of one of the short order cooks, which just goes to show that when you have hope, all sorts of good things are possible. Okay, let's take a listen to this. This is a little bit of a serious nature, but it's really written beautifully with a lot of humor, and the voice in it is something that I think you're really going to enjoy. So we're going to hear about chapter 1. This is what the pages look like. All right, chapter 1 of Hope Was Here. Somehow I knew my time had come when Bambi Barnes tore her order book into little pieces, hurled it in the air like confetti, and got fired from the Rainbow Diner in Pensacola right in the middle of a lunchtime rush. She'd been sobbing by the decaf urn, having accidentally spilled a bowl of navy bean soup in the lap of a man who was, as we say in the restaurant game, one taco short of a combo platter. Gib, the daytime manager, was screaming at her to stop crying, which made her cry all the more, which led to the firing and her stomping out the door, wailing how life wasn't fair, right in front of the hungry customers. That's when Gib turned to me. You want her job? I was a bus girl at the time, which meant I cleaned off dirty tables and brought people water and silverware. I'd been salivating for years to be a waitress. I stood up tall. Yes, I sure do. You going to cry on me, fall apart if something goes wrong? And I saw right then, if you're going to cut the mustard in food service, you better know how to handle turmoil. I straightened my shoulders, did my best to look like flint. I'm the toughest female you've ever seen, I assured him. You're hired then. Take the counter. It was my 14th birthday, and I took to waitress like a hungry trucker tackles a T-bone. That job was the biggest birthday present I'd ever gotten, next to getting my name changed legally when I was 12. I'd had 3 waitressing jobs over the last 2.5 years, slung hash from Pensacola to Brooklyn, made money that most teenagers only dream about. Brooklyn was the best place yet. And now I've got to leave. You ready? My Aunt Addie asked me the question. We were standing by the boarded up windows of what had once been the greatest diner in Brooklyn. The blue box was shut up like a tomb. You couldn't see the green vinyl booths by the window or the big oval counter that sat in the middle of the place, like the center ring in a circus. There weren't any whiffs of stuffed pork tenders with apricots, or country meatloaf with garlic mashed potatoes, or Addie's famous cinnamon ice cream dripping down that deep dish apple pie of hers with crust so buttery it would bring cab drivers to their knees in pure reverence. Anyone from Brooklyn knows cab drivers don't bow the knee for much. The sign wasn't lit up like it had been for those sweet 18 months that Addie had been chief cook and part owner with Gleason Beale, slime scourge of the earth. I stood there remembering how Gleason had stolen the money from the cash register one night, how he'd cleared out the business bank account and headed off for parts unknown with Charlene, the night waitress, and our money. We'd limp by for a few months on what we made daily, but when the furnace died, $10,000, and the roof started leaking, $4,000, and the monthly bills came due, we were toast. Addie had to close the place down before the bill collectors did. Bill collectors are like cheap tippers. They always leave bad feelings behind. I touched the boarded up window. I'd invented a sandwich here when I was 15, the keep hoping. It had layers of smoked turkey, sun-dried tomatoes, fresh mozzarella, and chopped salad greens with red wine vinaigrette on the sourdough roll. People ordered it like mad, too, because hope is something that everyone needs. I took out my blue pen and wrote, "Hope was here," in tiny letters on one of the boards. Hope is my name. Whenever I leave a place, I write this real small somewhere significant just to make the statement that I'd been there and made an impact. I've never defaced anything, never carved it into a tree or painted it on a sidewalk or street sign. I wrote, "Hope was here" in half-inch tall letters above the rotating dessert case at the Ballyhoo Grill back in South Carolina before we moved to New York. It's one of the ways I say goodbye to a place I've had tons of practice doing that. "I'm ready," I said. Addie squared her shoulders. "Let's do it." We walked across the street to an old Buick that was parked to the hilt with everything we owned and had a U-Haul trailer chained to the back. It was May 26th. We were heading to Mulhoney, Wisconsin to start work in a diner there that needed a professional manager and cook. Addie was short on waitresses, me, and was giving us an apartment. The man we were going to work for had been diagnosed with leukemia and needed help fast. I don't mean to sound ungenerous, but working for a close to dying man didn't sound like a great career move to me. I had to leave school right before the end of my undistinguished sophomore year, too. I hate leaving places I love. We were about to get into the car just as Morty, the cab driver, double parked his yellow taxi. Good old Morty. The first time I waited on him, he unloosened his belt a notch before he even looked at the menu. I knew I had a true believer. I raised my hand to a great tipper. "You always took care of me, kid." He shouted this from across the street as a UPS truck started honking at him to move his cab. "I tried, Morty." "Wherever you go, you'll do okay. You've got heart." The UPS driver screamed something heartless at Morty, who screamed back, "Watch your mouth, big man in a brown truck." I didn't know what kind of customers I'd get in Wisconsin. Miriam Leahy, one of my two best friends, had given me a New York Forever t-shirt as a goodbye present and said solemnly, "There's a lot of cheese where you're going, Hope. I'm not sure how this affects people long term. Wear this shirt and remember who you are." Miriam straightened her faux leopard vest, flipped back the 5 earrings dangling from her right lobe, and hugged me hard. We got in the car. Addie started it up. On to greener pastures, she said, and drove the Buick forward. It groaned with the weight of a U-Haul as we headed down Atlantic Avenue, the best place I've ever known in my whole life. She grabbed my hand and gave it a squeeze. Addie never promised that life would be easy, but she did promise that if I hung with her, the food would be good. Believe me when I tell you I know about survival. I was born too early and much too small, 2 pounds and 5 ounces. For the first month of my life, I kept gasping for air like I couldn't get the hang of breathing. I couldn't eat either, couldn't suck a bottle. The doctors didn't think I would make it. Shows what they know. My mother didn't want the responsibility of a baby, so she left me with Addie, her older sister, and went off to live her own life. I've seen her exactly 3 times since I was born, when she visited on my 5th, 8th, and 13th birthdays. Each time she talked about being a waitress. What a good one. Great hands and personality. What were the pitfalls? Crazed cooks and being on your feet all day. What was the biggest tip she ever got? $300 from a plumber who had just won the instant lottery. Each time she told me, "Hun, leaving you with Addie was the best thing I could have done for you. You need constance in your life." She had a different hair color each time she said it. Addie's been my number one constant. She stood by me in the hospital at my little oxygen tent, telling me to come on and get strong. The doctors told her to give up, but giving up isn't Addie's way. She'd wanted a baby all her life, and after 3 miscarriages, her no-good husband, Malcolm, deserting her for that thin-lipped dental hygienist, I was her last chance at motherhood. So I guess I pulled through because somehow I knew Addie needed me. Because of this, I don't buy into traditional roles. My favorite when I was little had pictures of baby animals like foxes and lambs and ducklings, and who were being raised by other animals like dogs, geese, and wolves. Addie said it was our story. But my mom, Dina, left me with 2 things. One I kept, her gift of waitressing. The other I threw away, the name she gave me at birth, which, I swear, was Tulip. How a person can look at a 2-pound baby all wired up in a hospital box and think, Tulip, is beyond me. On my 8th birthday, I asked Mom why she named me that. I remember her laughing and saying she'd seen a movie set in Holland, and the actress was running through a bed of tulips as happy as could be. I wanted to think of you that way, she cooed in her breathy voice, happy and free, running through the tulips. My good friend Lourdes, who has her own name challenge, said it could have been worse, that movie actresses could have been running through a field of poison ivy or snapdragons. It took me 12 years to break free of the curse. Kids teasing me, shuddering when the teacher called on me in class. By the time I was 14, I'd been to 6 different schools and lived in 5 states because although Addie was a great cook, the restaurant she worked for kept going belly up. I knew firsthand about change and adaptability, but Tulip is not a name you adapt to. So on my 12th birthday, Addie let me change it legally. She made me think hard about what I wanted to be called, got a book of names with their definitions that we poured through. And when we came to hope, I knew I'd found it. I think hope is just about the best thing a person can have. Addie said I had to think doubly hard about a name like Hope because it's a lot to live up to. People expect things from Hopes that they don't expect from Patties and Lisas and Danielas. People expect Hopes to be cheerful and positive. So I wrote out the name on a 3x5 card and carried it around with me for a month. Hope Yancey. At the end of the month, Addie asked, "You think you're up to carrying that name?" I said I was. Okay, Hope Yancey, let's make it official. I got all dressed up, and Addie and I took the bus to the courthouse in downtown St. Louis, where we were living at the time. The clerk who processed my papers at the courthouse said if anyone deserved the name Hope, it was me. I made her hopeful just standing there. I wasn't feeling too hopeful at the moment. Addie was flying on the interstate to Wisconsin, the land of lactose. I stared out the window as the Buick roared west to whatever. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first chapter of this book. I promise you, this is a great read. It's a really great summertime read for you. I hope that you'll check it out at your local library. I hope that you'll leave a comment in the comments section, and I'll do my best to get to it. Until then, happy reading, and I'll see you next Friday.